The night of March 3, 1991, was supposed to be just another quiet Sunday in the San Fernando Valley. But for one man, it would become a nightmare that would change the course of American history forever. As flickering police lights mirrored the neon glow of the Los Angeles skyline, a high-speed chase was about to culminate. In an act of violence so brutal, it would be etched into the collective memory of a nation. This wasn't just a routine traffic stop. It was the spark that would ignite a powder keg of racial tension, police brutality, and systemic injustice that had been simmering beneath the surface of the City of Angels for decades. Before we dive deeper into this harrowing story, please remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe, so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Your support helps us continue to bring you these important stories. Now, let's carry on with the story of Rodney King and the night that changed everything. Rodney Glenn King was a 25-year-old construction worker who had spent the evening drinking with friends. He was driving his 1988 Hyundai XL on the 210 freeway when spotted by California Highway Patrol officers. King, on parole for a previous robbery, panicked. A DUI charge would send him back to prison. So he stepped on the gas, leading officers on a high-speed chase that reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour. The pursuit wound through Lakeview Terrace, eventually involving several LAPD units and a police helicopter. When King finally pulled over near the Hanson Dam recreation area, the scene was already chaotic. LAPD officers, led by Sergeant Stacey Koon, took over from the CHP. King's 2 passengers were taken into custody without incident. But for Rodney King, the night was about to take a much darker turn. As he emerged from the vehicle, officers claimed he was acting bizarre and belligerent, possibly under the influence of PCP, a powerful hallucinogen. What happened next was captured on a grainy 81-second video by George Holliday. A local resident, awakened by the noise, decided to test out his new camera from his balcony. The footage showed King struck by 2 taser darts, which failed to incapacitate him. As he tried to stand up, Officer Laurence Powell struck him with a metal baton, followed by Officer Timothy Wind, as he lay on the ground, writhing in pain. Throughout the ordeal, Sergeant Koon stood by, supervising the other officers and failing to intervene. The video, soon broadcast on local and national news, provided a rare and undeniable glimpse into police misconduct that many in the Black community had been reporting for years. It was a visual indictment of a system that seemed to operate with impunity. The fallout from the video was immediate and intense. The 4 officers were indicted by a grand jury on charges of assault with a deadly weapon and use of excessive force. The trial, however, was moved from the diverse heart of Los Angeles to Simi Valley, a predominantly white and conservative suburb in Ventura County. This change of venue was a critical turning point, as it ensured a jury pool far removed from the lived experiences of those in communities most affected by police brutality. The trial began in early 1992, and the defense argued King was a dangerous monster who resisted arrest, and that the officers' actions were within the bounds of LAPD policy. They meticulously deconstructed the Holiday video, frame by frame, to suggest King's movements were aggressive. The prosecution relied heavily on the video, believing the evidence of brutality was so clear, a conviction was inevitable. But they underestimated the power of the defense's narrative and the biases of the jury. On April 29, 1992, the verdict was announced. To the shock and horror of millions, the jury acquitted all 4 officers. The news spread like wildfire through Los Angeles, and the sense of betrayal was palpable. For many, the verdict was a clear message that the lives of Black men did not matter. Within hours of the verdict, the city erupted in violence. Florence and Normandy Avenues became the epicenter. Angry residents began to pull people from their cars and set fire to buildings. One of the most infamous incidents was the beating of Reginald Denny, a white truck driver, dragged from his vehicle and brutally assaulted. The scene was captured live by news helicopters. mirroring the violence of the King beating and further inflaming tensions. The riots lasted for 6 days, during which time the city was transformed into a war zone. Businesses were looted, entire blocks burned to the ground, and the National Guard was called in to restore order. By the time the smoke cleared, 63 people were dead, over 2,000 injured, and more than $1 billion in property damage. It was the deadliest civil unrest in American history, a visceral expression of decades of frustration and despair. In the midst of the chaos, Rodney King made a public appearance, his face still swollen from the beating. In a trembling voice, he issued a plea for peace that would become one of the most famous quotes of the era. "People, I just want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along?" His words were a poignant reminder of the human cost of the violence and a call for reconciliation. The federal government eventually stepped in, charging the 4 officers with violating Rodney King's civil rights. This second trial, held in Los Angeles in 1993, resulted in a different outcome. Sergeant Stacey Koon and Officer Laurence Powell were found guilty and sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. That the incident and the riots had inflicted on the city and the nation. Rodney King's life after the beating was a struggle. He was awarded $3.8 million in a civil suit. On June 17, 2012, King was found dead in his swimming pool at the age of 47. His death was ruled an accidental drowning, with alcohol and drugs listed as contributing factors. The legacy of the Rodney King beating and the LA riots continues to resonate today. It was a watershed moment that forced the nation to confront the reality of systemic racism and police misconduct. It led to significant reforms within the LAPD and sparked a national conversation about law enforcement. Yet, as the names of other victims of police violence continue to make headlines, it is clear that the issues are far from resolved. The story of Rodney King is a tragic chapter in the American story, a reminder of the fragility of justice and the enduring power of visual evidence to challenge the status quo. It is a story of a man who became an unwilling icon, a city that burned with rage, and a nation that is still grappling with the questions of race and equality that were laid bare on that dark night. As we look back on these events, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance, empathy, and the ongoing struggle for a more just and equitable society. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.